NBA Ndola Battery Limited was recently established after so many government pronouncements on the introduction of electrical vehicles. A government official was quoted as saying that all public service departments will be required to procure electric vehicles starting next year. NBL commenced operations immediately after sourcing finance from a bank. It will produce both batteries and car charging accessories. The company has two production departments, mixing and assembly, and two service departments, stores and maintenance. NBL has adopted absorption costing system. An accountant at NBL and the cost department has collated the following information for November 2023. All right, so here are the costs. These are the overheads. All right, whenever you hear overhead, these are just basically like the indirect costs that the company has. Then we also have the budgeted information here. So the first thing is explain the three stages of overhead absorption. So the three stages which are included in overhead absorption, the first stage is the allocation and apportionment of overheads. Allocation of overheads, you're just putting the overhead charge in the relevant department. So with allocation, there's no calculations. You just get the overhead charge and put it to the department where it's referring to. Then overhead apportionment. This is where you're sharing out the overheads across the departments. All right. So like in this question here, we're going to be apportioning these overheads to the mixing, assembly, stores, and maintenance department. The second stage of overhead absorption is the reapportionment of overheads to production departments. All right. Since the service departments aren't directly involved in producing the products, so their overheads will be reapportioned back to the production departments. Right? Then after you have done your reapportionments, the third stage is now to get your overhead absorption rate. All right, where you're going to get the total overheads and you're going to divide it by any of these bases, so that you can get your overhead cost per unit. Because what we're trying to do here is we just want our overhead cost per unit so that we can know the total cost per unit to produce these batteries. So the three stages, overhead allocation and apportionment, stage one. Stage two, reapportionment of the overheads from the service departments to the production departments. And then stage three, this is where you calculate because this is the absorption of the overheads. This is where you get your overhead absorption rate, where you divide your total overheads for each department, and you select an absorption base from this information here. So part B, using the step down method of overhead reapportionment, determine the overhead absorption rates for the production departments. So we're now going to see how these steps in overhead absorption in part B. Then once we reach the step down method, I'm going to explain what it is. All right. So since we need to, before we even reach the step down method, what is needed is we need to apportion our overheads. All right. These overheads here will need to be apportioned or shared out to these four departments. Then after we've apportioned them and got the total overheads, once we're reapportioning the overheads for the service departments, that's where the step down method comes in. With a step down method, you just want to see which service department is supporting the other service department more. All right. Yes. So let's start with the overhead apportionment. Now, here we can see we've got direct costs. So the direct costs for the production departments have already been dealt with. So you need to only include the direct costs for stores and maintenance. Okay. For the production departments, they've already been catered for. So you need to just focus on stores and maintenance. So you're going to make a table like this. All right, you need to make a table like this. And now we're going to see how we apportion the overheads. All right. So for each overhead, we're going to need to select a basis of apportionment. This basis of apportionment is going to help us share the overheads across each department. So we're going to start with the first one. Indirect materials. We need to select a basis of apportionment. So where you select the basis of apportionment is here. From this additional budgeted information, let me just bring it this side to the other document. Yes, here it is. Okay. So for indirect materials, you are going to choose which basis of apportionment is suitable. All right. So here we've got number of store requisitions, number of staff, area square meters, machine value, indirect labors, kilowatt hours, direct labor hours, and machine maintenance hours. So for indirect materials, the basis of apportionment we can use is the number of store requisitions. Remember, store requisitions, this is where you are requesting for materials. So this can be direct materials and they can be also indirect materials. So the total number of store requisitions is 10,000. Sometimes they won't give you the total. You might need to calculate the total by yourself. But in this case, they've given us the totals. So what we need to do is we're going to express each of these as fractions of the total, and we're going to multiply it by the total overhead of 1 million kwacha. So this is what I mean. For the mixing departments, the number of storage requisitions are 3,500. So you're going to say 3,500 over 10,000 times the total overhead, which is 1 million. You're going to get 350,000 for the mixing department. Are we okay with this, madam? Any questions before we move further? Okay. For assembly department, it's 4,000. So you're going to say number of store requisitions is 4,000. So you're going to say 4,000 over 10,000 multiplied by 1 million. You're going to get 400,000. Stores department, number of store requisitions are 1,000. So you're going to say 1,000 over 10,000 excuse me, times 1 million, you're going to get 100,000. And then finally, maintenance, I'm going to say number of storage positions for maintenance 1,500. So you say 1,500 over 10,000 multiplied by 1 million, and you get 150,000. So as you can see, we have apportioned this 1 million across the 4 departments using number of store requisitions. Any questions before we move further? Okay. Next is rent. Where the next one is rent. Rent, the total overhead is 750,000. So we're going to see what basis of apportionment are we going to use. So for rent, the basis of apportionment that we use is area square meters. So the total area square meters are 2,000. So we need now to apportion rent. So we say rent here, it's to say area square meters. So we start with the mixing department. All right, so the area square meters for mixing department are 500. So you say 500 over 2,000 multiplied by the total rent cost of 750,000. So you can also use your calculator just to cross check if my figures are correct. Right, so 500 over 2,000 times 750,000 for the mixing department, you're going to get 187,500. For assembly department, the area square meters are 1,000. So you're going to say 1,000 over 2,000 times 750,000 is supposed to get 375,000. For stores department, it's going to be 250 over 2,000 times 750,000. You're going to get, what's this? What did I get here? 93,750, right? Okay. Same with maintenance department. The rent is also 250. So 250 over 2,000 times 750, you get 93,750. Yes. So, and also remember when you add these up, they should give you the actual total. Okay. Yes. So the next one is electricity. Electricity, we can use kilowatt hours consumed. All right. The total kilowatt hours consumed are 413. So the total electricity bill is 500,000. So we start with mixing. Mixing, uses 138 kilowatt hours over 413 multiplied by 500,000. I rounded off my figure. You're supposed to get a decimal number. So I rounded off mine to 167,070. But let's get the actual decimal. 138 divided by 413, 0.33 times 500,000. You get, yes, 167,070.2. So I just rounded off here. But if you want, you can keep the decimal figures. Yeah, so that's for mixing department. Assembly, 225. Assembly uses 225 kilowatt hours. 225 over 413 times 500,000. You get 225 divided by 413. You get 272,397.09. Yeah, 397.09. Then for stores and maintenance is the same. So let's tabulate for stores. For stores is going to be 25 over 413 times 500,000. You get 30,266.34. So I rounded off to 30,266. So even for maintenance, it's the same since they use the same amount of kilowatt hours. So also maintenance, you get 30,266 kilowatt hours consumed. Yes. Okay, so we've got two more. Machine depreciation. You're going to use the machine value. Total machine value is 500,000. So you're going to say for mixing, machine value is 225,000. So say 225,000 over 500,000. You can just shorten it and just write 225 over 500. And you can also ignore these zeros to make life easy. 225 over 500 multiplied by 250,000. Supposed to get 112,500. I believe that's a rounded off figure. It's 250,000. Okay, it's not a rounded off figure. For assembly, assembly machine value 175,000. So you just shorten it and say 175 over 500. Okay, we're just ignoring these zeros since these numbers are a bit too long, so we don't need. If you want, you can include the zeros. If you want, you can just shorten it like that. Either way, you get the same answers. So 175 divided by 500 times 250, 0.35 times 250,000, 87,500. That's for assembly. For stores, machine value 45,000. So just say 45 over 500 times 250,000. 45 of 500 times 250,000. You get 22,500, which is here. Then maintenance, you're going to say 55,000 over 500. 55 over 500 times 250,000. Let's see on the table, I got 27,500. Then finally, indirect labor, you get indirect labor hours here, indirect labor hours. Total amount for indirect labor hours 826,000. So that's the overhead 826,000. And the actual total in the indirect labor hours are 240 hours. So mixing has 60 hours. So you're going to do 60 over 240 times 826,000. What value do we get there? Then assembly, it will be 4 over 40 over 240. Stores is going to be 48 over 240. 8. And then maintenance is going to be 92 over 240. Okay, so let me see what values I got over here. So for mixing, 206,500. Assembly, 137,667. Stores, 165,200. The maintenance department, 316,633. Believe these are rounded off figures. Is that what you've also got? What? Okay, wonderful. So this is the apportionment. All right. Yeah, this is the apportionment. The direct materials were already allocated. So basically, we've done step one. Okay. And then what's needed is we total up the overheads. So for mixing department, you add up all the overheads. Supposed to get 1,023,570. Assembly department, you add up all the overheads. Supposed to get 1,272,565. Stores, you also add up all the overheads, you get 411,716. And then also maintenance, you're supposed to add up all the overheads and you get 618,149. Then for these two service departments, remember we had direct materials, so you need to add them too. So 411,000 plus 100,000, you get 511,716. And for this is which department again? Maintenance, 618,000 plus the direct materials, 180,000. You get 798,149. Any questions before we go now to the step down method? For that one, the whenever you see any direct over any direct like direct materials, direct labor, just know it's going to only apply to the service departments, not the production departments, but the service departments. That's why I've seen it here. Then, when sharing out these overheads, you're going to choose a basis to use to share out the overheads, and you'll be expressing them as fractions so that you get your values here. Okay. So now the next part is the step down method. All right. For the step down method, we want to see which service department supports the other. And when we're talking about support, we mean which service department gives the other service department a bigger portion of its overhead. Okay. So we've got two service departments, we've got stores, and we have maintenance. So we're going to see how much stores gives maintenance out of its overhead of 511,760, and also going to find out how much maintenance gives stores out of its 798,149. Okay. Of one, let me repeat again. We're going to see how much stores gives maintenance out of this 511,716. You want to find out how much does stores give to maintenance. And then again, also, you want to find out how much does maintenance give stores from this 798. Then whichever is giving the other department more of its overheads will be reapportioned first. Okay, with the step down method, whichever service department is giving more of its overhead to another service department, you are going to reapportion that service department first. So let me explain. Okay, so first things first, we can start with any department. Let's say let's start with maintenance. I think I made a table here. Yes, so this is the reapportionment part. Okay, so first we're going to start with maintenance. We're going to see maintenance out of this 798,149. How much is given to the stores department? Okay, if you remember maintenance, its total overhead is 798,149. Okay, and want to find out how much of this 798,149 goes to stores. So to reapportion maintenance, we're going to select the basis of reapportioning maintenance. We're going to use number of staff total number of staff. The same way we're doing the apportionments is what we're also doing here. Okay. To- yes, so total number of staff. But this time you have to be careful because here, once you're doing the reapportionments, as you can see, like for the total number of staff, you're not going to, since it's maintenance being reapportioned, so you're not going to include maintenance. Here's the number of staff, but you're going to ignore these six staff members from maintenance, since it's maintenance giving out the overhead here. So you won't include it. You're only going to include stores, assembly, and mixing. Okay. So when you're reapportioning a service department, do not include its information in the basis of apportionment. So here for maintenance, we won't include that six. We only focus on this 1, 15, and 9. So when you add these two up, 1 plus 9, that is 10, 10 plus 15, 25. So we have 25 staff members. Right, we have 25 staff members. Maintenance has one staff member. So you say 1 over 25 times 719,149. You get 31,925.96. So out of this 798,149 overhead for maintenance, stores is getting 31,925.96. If you want to put it in percentage format, you just do the number you've got divided by the total. Stores is getting 4% of maintenance is overhead charge. Okay. Or you can think about it as maintenance is supporting stores with 4% of its overhead charge. So let me put it down here. Maintenance is supporting stores with 4%, which is this amount, 31,000, 1,925.96 of its overhead. Any questions? Now, next, we're going to reapportion stores. We want to see how much stores is supporting maintenance. All right. So here for stores, we'll still use number of store requisitions. But since we're reapportioning stores, so do not include this 1,000 of store requisitions for stores, since it's the one that's being reapportioned here. So you won't include this amount. So you say that 1,5 plus 3,5, that is 5,000 plus 4,000. You have now 9,000 store requisitions. Okay, and maintenance has how many? 1,500 store requisitions. So say 1,500 over 9,000 times. This is the overhead for stores, 511, 716. You get 85,285. If you want to get it as a percentage, just 85,285 divided by the total 511, 716. You get 16.67%. So what we can say is stores is supporting maintenance with 16.67%, which is 85,285. of its overhead. So with the step down method, we want to see which one between the two is supporting the other one more. So in this case, stores is supporting maintenance with 16.67% of its overhead. When we're talking about supporting, we're just saying giving part of your cost. Okay? That's what supporting is. That's what we mean with support. You're just giving part of your cost. So store is giving maintenance 16.67% of its overhead, which is 85,285. Maintenance is giving stores 4% of its overhead, which is 31,925.96. So here we can clearly see that stores is supporting maintenance more than maintenance is supporting stores. So since stores is supporting maintenance more, it is the one we're going to reapportion first. Okay. Whichever one is giving the other department more of its overheads is the one that will be reapportioned first. So yes, we're going to reapportion stores. So as you can see, so this 511,716, we're going to reapportion it to maintenance, mixing, and assembly. We already got the figure for maintenance. It was 85,286. Let's get for assembly and mixing. So we come back here, stores. We used the number of store requisitions. Remember, the total number of store requisitions this time was 9,000 because we're not including stores here when we're apportioning. So mixing department, it gets 3,500. It has 3,500 store requisitions. The total number of store requisitions, 9,000. Multiplied by the total overhead cost for stores, you get 199,001. Assembly department has 4,000 store requisitions. Out of 9,000 store requisitions, the total overhead for the stores department 511,716. So you say 4,000 out over 9,000 times 511,716, you get 227,429. For maintenance department, we already did this tabulation. We got 85,285. So these figures, you are going to put them here. Any questions before we go further? Okay. Then here it has to be zero. So that's why you've seen I've put it as a negative. When you reapportion, it has to be zero. All right. So that to show that the overheads have been taken out from here and taken to the production departments. Okay. Then the next part is the next service department to reapportion is now the maintenance department. So for maintenance, you won't use this 798,149. You need to also add this 85,000 to 86. All right. You also need to include this one that came from stores. Okay. So you're going to say 798,149 plus 85,286. You get 883,435. This is the overhead you need to reapportion back to assembly and mixing. Stores has gone, so do not even include stores when you're reapportioning this one. Stores has gone. All right, so this 883435 is just going to be reapportioned to assembly and mixing. So we said maintenance, how we are reapportioning it. We said we're using the number of staff. So now, when we look at our information on number of staff, stores has gone, and since maintenance we are reapportioning, so you're only going to focus on the 9 members in mixing and the 15 members in assembly, since stores has gone and maintenance is being reapportioned. So do not include them. Please remember this, all right? When you're reapportioning a service department, do not include its information from here. And if one service department has already, like how stores has been, have already apportioned its overhead, do not re-include it again. So here, number of staff 9 plus 15, that is 24 staff members. So mixing department has 9 staff members, 9 out of 24 times the total overhead for maintenance, 883435. You get this amount, 331,288. Assembly department, 15 staff members out of 24, multiplied by 883435, you get 552,147. And then you put these amounts here. So basically, well, we are done with stage 2. We have reapportioned the overheads for the service departments back to the production departments. So you'll get now the total overheads for each production department. So for mixing, you're going to add this total overhead we calculated plus the 199,000 one kwacha plus 331,288. This is the total overhead for this, which one, this one, mixing. Then for assembly, the total of 1,272,565 plus 227,429 plus 552,147, you get 2,052,141 kwacha. So now these are the total overheads for our production department. And we can now go to step 3, where you get your overhead absorption rate, or where you absorb the overheads. So the overhead absorption rate is just the total overheads divided by the absorption base. So the absorption base, you can select what absorption base you find suitable. All right. So for mixing department, I used direct labor hours, okay, as the absorption base. Mixing department has 159 direct labor hours from this information here. Okay, mixing department, 159 direct labor hours. Okay, even assembly, I want to use direct labor hours. Assembly has got 190 direct labor hours. So we get our overhead absorption rate for mixing department first. For mixing department, the total overheads 1,553,859 kwacha divided by 159 direct labor hours. You're going to get 9,773 kwacha per direct labor hour. And then for assembly department, or in this case here, kilowatt hours were used. So if you want, you can use kilowatt hours, direct labor hours. It's just up to you to choose. Okay. So here We use kilowatt hours then. But if you want to use direct labor hours, you can still use direct labor hours. You want, okay? So for mixing assembly department, the total overhead 2,052,141. The kilowatt hours consumed from the table 225. So you do 2,052,141 divided by 225 kwacha, get 9,121 kwacha per kilowatt hour. So those are the overhead absorption rates for the production departments. And this, when we want to now tabulate the total cost of producing each battery, all right, because remember, when you want to get the total cost per unit, you have to have the direct labor per unit, direct materials per unit, and then you also include these overhead absorption rates so that you can tabulate the total cost of producing one battery. Because that's the whole point of this thing. You want to find the cost of producing one battery. But direct materials and the direct labor, it's easy to calculate the cost per unit for those. All right. But where the problem comes in is where you want to now incorporate overheads into tabulation of the cost per unit. So you're going to need to do this overhead absorption process so that you get your overhead cost per unit. These, you can think of these as your overhead costs per unit. All right. So for example, let's say to produce one battery, let's say the direct materials for each unit, maybe let's say you spend 1,000 kwacha. Direct labor, you spend 800 kwacha. So now the overheads come in here. So if you want, you for the mixing department, over it's 9,733 per direct labor hour. So maybe if it's if you need 3 direct labor hours for each unit, you're going to multiply these 3 hours by this amount. And then also if you use 2 kilowatt hours per unit, you're going to multiply those 2 kilowatts per hours per unit by this amount so that you can tabulate your total cost of producing the battery.